6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit RealAmericasVoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now.
Comments, concerns, even criticisms of the show, those are all welcome. TPT@TPUSA.com, or leave a comment wherever it is that you happen to be watching this via X, Facebook, YouTube, whatever the social media platform of choice that you choose to watch this show on. Leave a comment, and if those comments and emails are disgusting in nature, just bigoted, downright awful, and mean, we might actually read them on the show. That would actually fit in perfectly in our mailbag segment, which is the 5th segment of the show. If you'd like a chance to be included, TPT@TPUSA.com is the email address. You know, I think a lot of us have seen videos of kids protesting at schools, the big giant walkouts and the sticking it to the man. Now, there's a certain amount of that is acceptable, but also expected in young people. That's kind of just how they're wired. The famous Winston Churchill quote of, if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative in your 30s, you have no brain, pretty much holds true to kind of the standard of the way that younger people interact with the goings-on of the world, society, politics more broadly. And I think we see quite a bit of that, especially with the protesting libs really, really upset about the laws that they themselves voted on 30 years ago. But all of that being said, we've seen videos like this all too often. We watched this video a couple weeks ago, but I felt like it had to be brought on today specifically because I had a change of heart this morning. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'll get into why after we revisit this very, very briefly from an Atlanta, Georgia, well, a Georgia-based school, cut 6. Okay, so you get the idea. You've got several thousand kids, if you look at that screen, maybe several hundred, maybe 1,000 kids walking off of their school campuses. Now, we talked about it when this did happen. This was a couple weeks ago because students, for some reason, are protesting and leaving their classrooms. But this morning, as I was sipping my coffee, I started to notice a bunch of students walking down the street right in front of our house. Now, again, like I said, I had planned to talk about something else, but I got very, very curious. What is going on here? The closest school to where we live is a junior high. Are these junior high school kids walking down the street avoiding school on a busy street, by the way, where there is a safety component involved? I obviously then put on some shoes, followed them around. Now, if I was a worse person, I definitely could have got some of these kids on camera talking about what it is that they were protesting, why in fact that they were leaving school on my dime, by the way. But I didn't. I just was watching and seeing, hey, is this what I think it is? And turns out it was. A bunch of students were holding signs saying F ICE in junior high, by the way, F Trump, all of the different derogatory things. They were kind of just milling about. They weren't chanting anything. And yeah, it was happening in my neck of the woods. And I live in a very conservative part of Southern California, which there are conservative parts of California. Actually, geographically, the majority of it's conservative, but don't need to get into that right now. So because of that, I thought, holy cow, what is this costing me? Right, because the whole point of public education is that there is a benefit to the populace. I pay taxes, property taxes specifically, and that's likely the case where you live, so that the area around can have education systems for the youth. I, as it's been told to me, have a benefit to all of the people in the area being educated. That at least has been the thinking for the last 100 years of government schooling in the United States of America. It benefits everybody for more people to be educated, which is why we have a government school system. So obviously, I'm thinking as I'm watching these kids walk down the street going, considering the fact that I'm paying for them to be at school, and the reason I'm doing that is because this is a benefit to me. Them not being in school, therefore, means the benefit that I'm supposed to be receiving for paying the tax dollars that I am forced to pay by gunpoint, really, is not actually, I'm not receiving the benefit that I'm supposed to be receiving because they're not in school. And then I started to wonder, well, what is that actually costing me? And on a national scale, on national averages, when students leave public government schools at the high school level or below, what does that actually cost the overall taxpayer? The numbers, believe it or not, are astronomical. Now, there is a difference between college kids and high school kids. Obviously, one, the maturity level, unfortunately, actually doesn't seem to be too different. Yeah, you'd think that they'd get more mature when they got to college. I don't know that to be true anecdotally. I wish it were, but I don't know that to be true. The difference, obviously, is college you pay for out of your own pocket. So if you skip class and you'd like to go set up a no police zone in the quad at a college, fine, it's your money, not mine. As long as my tax dollars don't fund your education, or as long as we don't forgive your loans, who am I to tell you that you can't get your money in the form of a loan and light it on fire in the middle of the quad? Your business, fine. When it comes to the high schoolers, though, who are mandated to be there by law, and they are not there at my expense, what does that actually cost? Now, the cost per student, per day, or per year is astronomical. Now, it varies degree to degree for various places around the country. Obviously, the higher, more expensive places to live are going to cost more, when the lower expensive places to live cost less. But first, you have to ask the question, why is it so freaking expensive to educate, and I use the term in quotes, educate students in this country? Well, since the 1970s, staff added to government education at the high school below, K through 12 effectively, has increased in the administrative stance 2 to 3 times more than the teachers. In other words, the administratives, the non-teaching staff, actually increased at 3 times the rate as actual teachers. What does that do to the cost? Well, it goes up, clearly and obviously. And does the expectation for the education standards for the students go up? Not necessarily, and in many cases, it's gone down drastically. There was a great report that showed the differences between cost per students in New York City specifically, and Florida, versus the grades that those students got. And the numbers were very skewed in both directions. It cost way more to educate a student way less in New York than it did in the state of Florida. But just overall, what does it actually cost per student per year in terms of the money allocated to the government schools? On the higher end, in New York, it costs between $33,000 and $37,000 per year per kid. California, which sits at the higher end of the middle, usually coming around 15th, 16th place in cost per student, $25,000. Even in the places that are more affordable and also probably way more efficient with your tax dollars, like Utah or Idaho, the cost is still around $13,000. Overall, the average is somewhere between $23,000 nationally or $25,000 nationally to educate one kid per year in government schools. Now, if you divide that out by 180, which is the amount of days that they are actually in school throughout the year, that factors into about $144 per day. Now, the question is, are they getting that money? Well, the way that the funding works for schools, and this differs from state to state, but mostly the states are kind of consistent. They have an enrollment number, and then they have an engagement number. The enrollment is, well, how many students are enrolled in that school? The engagement number or attendance number is usually the average of those kids that actually show up, right? If you don't show up to school, ain't no way you're getting funding. What happens is the schools obviously keep attendance, and then for those attendance dates, they get money effectively, on average, higher end of the average, about $144 per day per student. Now, if those students don't show up to school, there usually are some mechanisms. Generally, they do it by annual average, but there are some mechanisms that say, well, the school then shouldn't get that money. Well, duh. If the students choose to walk off campus, therefore not learn, therefore I don't get my alleged benefit to society that I'm paying tax dollars for, my tax dollars then shouldn't go to that school. Just doing the math here, these numbers aren't small in any way, shape, or form. If it's $144 per day per student, if 1,000 students walk off of a high school campus, that's $144,000 per day that school should not get. The question then, of course, is, well, who keeps attendance? Unfortunately, it's the schools. Unfortunately, the people that would benefit from skewing the numbers are the ones in charge of keeping the numbers. You might ask, well, why wouldn't they just lie? If 1,000 students walked off their campus and protested the law that everybody agreed on, why wouldn't the school just lie about that? Are they actually being marked absent or truant? Because they are. They're not in class. They're not learning. They're not doing the thing that allegedly benefits me as the taxpayer. Therefore, they should not get that money. Why wouldn't they just lie about it? Well, sometimes they do. As recently as 2024, and these numbers are difficult to come across because the way that the reporting all works, the only thing that you're going to get is from a couple years ago. Los Angeles Unified School District had an investigation from a KCAL news probe, which reported the schools marking entire classrooms present on days when there were actually many absences. And it took a whistleblower, a teacher, to say, hey, we're marking all of these kids here, but half of them aren't. And the reason they would do that, obviously, is because, well, if half of them aren't here, that might affect our average daily attendance, which might affect our funding, which might affect our pay. So we're going to lie about it, allegedly. Chicago Public Schools in 2026, an Office of Inspector General report said that there was a program manager that falsified federal grant applications over inflating student numbers, claiming that there were 600 or 700 versus actually 300 students in a specific education program, leading to about $1.2 million repaid by the U.S. Department of Education after years of misuse. Kind of a problem. I think what I'm getting at here ultimately is, do I have a problem with high school students walking off campus? Yes, of course. They should be at school. They shouldn't be indoctrinated by their woke teachers or social media into thinking that they're actually making a difference. And I think we should also look into practical ways and how to stop that. I think the most practical way of doing it is then following up with your school board. Hey, I noticed that 1,000 students walked off this high school campus. Did the high school campus end up receiving the full amount of funding for that day? Because that money comes out of my property taxes. That's generally how schools and local things are paid for. And because it's coming out of my property taxes, I would like to know that it's being spent effectively and efficiently. Now, like I mentioned, several of these students walked off, not one, not two, maybe even 4 or 5 days out of the year. That kind of factors into several hundreds of thousands of dollars. My question is, do the attendance reports coming from the schools match the walk-offs, which are very well documented on social media? And if they don't, two things should happen. One, either the school should lose funding, or two, somebody is held accountable. In a perfect world, both of those things would happen. The question is, of course, are they happening? And if not, that is where we come in. People constantly email the show or send messages or comments of, hey, what can we actually do? This is a tangible thing that you can do. Now, you can't go into the schools and audit. There's lots of logistical reasons why that would be problematic. But you can pressure your school board by going to meetings that, by the way, not a lot of people go to, and say, hey, can you release any of these reports? California specifically, and I only know this because I live here, requires third-party CPAs to go in and audit whether or not the attendance records are adjusted. Now, obviously, there's huge problems even with that, but But those numbers are out there. And whether or not they're being followed is up to voters like me and you that can go to these school board meetings, that can go and say, hey, I noticed that big line of students were walking down my street on this particular day. What was the attendance rate at this school? And it's pretty easy to tell whether or not those things match up. Now, ultimately, it'd be great if we could just get rid of government schools. But unfortunately, we can't. And as we wrap this up, I think I do want to play this one thing because I know there's a lot of the woke teachers that we mentioned so often on this show. I know are not you folks. If you are, in fact, a teacher that listen to this show or watch this show, I recognize I'm not talking about you. But for you, I think one of the things that Linda McMahon, the Secretary of the Department of Education, put out recently is worth knowing. This is only another way to practically fight back against the woke liars who unfortunately are running our government schools. If you don't know this and you're a government school teacher, it's worth a watch. This is Cut 7.
Teachers, did you know you are not obligated to pay union dues no matter what state you live in? In 2018, the Supreme Court ruled that public employees, including teachers, cannot be required to join or pay a union as a condition of employment. This was a huge win for American workers. No employee should feel obligated to hand over their salary to a union that is bankrolling political causes with their hard-earned paycheck. If you choose to stay, that's your call. The point is, the choice is yours. Returning education to the states is about empowering parents, students, and teachers alike, ensuring those closest to the child are making decisions that work for their students, not special interests or bureaucrats sitting in Washington, D.C.
Every single element of this is important when it comes to fixing the government schools. Who defends the teachers or administrators that would lie about attendance because they don't want the money to go down? Well, it's the teachers' unions. And if there's patriot conservative teachers out there that don't want to be a part of defending the teachers that would lie in order to receive the money coming from the state that nobody's going to check on, you don't have to. Yeah, you can go to your school board meetings, and also you don't need to be a part of the teachers' unions, as according to the 2018 ruling by the Supreme Court, and also being pushed by the Secretary of Education. All in all, if you can, recognize this is a heavy ask, get your kids out of government schools. Realize that might be expensive, but honestly, it sure would be cheaper and more efficient than sending them to this school. And I recognize that you don't get that voucher back, but I don't know, maybe that's another piece of legislation that maybe we should push for. Hey, I don't have kids in this school system. Can I just get my money back? And I know some of you are screaming at your TV saying, no, that's a charter school. Yes, I recognize that, but I would just like it back in cash because unfortunately I can't use the charter school vouchers to send them to a Christian school. But again, we're getting a little bit off track. It is an astronomical amount of money that gets wasted when high schoolers, prompted by woke teachers and social media, walk off of their campus. And it is something also that we can do about it. So we should. TPT@tpusa.com is the email address if you'd like to send along your thoughts, comments, concerns, even criticisms. We welcome all of those. Coming up after the break, we're going to get to the point. A lot of the headlines going around the media news world that should be important. We'll talk about them briefly, getting to the point. And followed by that is Official Business, which is a new segment of the show where we talk official business in a hokey and jokey way by making fun of libs mostly. We'll be right back after the break. TPT@tpusa.com is the email. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Real America's Voice is growing, and now it's all in one place. Introducing the new and improved RAV app, built for access, community, and choice, not paywalls. Here's the key. RAV is still free to watch. No sign-in, no membership required. Your favorite live streams, breaking coverage, and video on demand are all right there. Free, just like always.
For the War Room Posse, we have to be a force multiplier on this. We have to stick the landing.
In the White House, in the Oval Office, you're crushing it, my friend.
friend.
And if you want more, the members section is your backstage pass. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and videos, insider moments from the studio and the field, and early access to new content before it goes public. Members can also unlock special experiences like virtual meet and greets, member-only auctions, and select event access. Plus, commercial-free viewing of certain shows inside the app. It's not just an app, it's a community. Download the RAV app today. Find it in the App Store and Google Play.
The radical left knows exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted,
Seditious conspiracy.
but behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
Dependent on two Christian. You're late again. What did I say was going to happen? That's right. Go to timeout. On two crucial factors. Does anybody? No chair. Just crisscross applesauce in the corner. Market. The key concern is. That's right. Services in any area. And if you price too high, you will end up with a.
That's how you run a classroom. I don't know if this is a joke or not. I realize that there are some college professors that maybe this is a marketing class. And if it is, that's a great saying, hey, we're going to try and go viral. What would go viral? And then the students say, hey, if you put a student in timeout and have one of them doing the Bart Simpson lines. I realize that lines have been a thing since forever. I'm just referencing Bart Simpson because that's what comes to mind when you're writing lines on a chalkboard. But if it's not satire and that's actually how this guy runs his classroom, more power to you. That is fantastic, especially coming off of talking about how schools should be run. So that's that. We're doing new things. We're okay. We're running through a bunch of headlines, but I don't know if I even like this intro, producer Glenn. It's time to get to the point.
Get to the point. Get to the point.
I feel like that is in some way, shape, or form a knock at the lack of brevity that I sometimes display here. It's not what we're trying to. We're trying to, lay out the points and the facts of the news of the day, but the get to the point feels a little bit, critical of how sometimes I go off on tangents. So I'm not entirely sure I like that. But let's do it. Let's get to the point. First up, from Breitbart, a Colombian model pleads guilty to leading drug money laundering ring in the United States of America. A 33-year-old Colombian model pled guilty to a sophisticated multi-state criminal investigation that laundered $31 million from a drug trafficking ring in the United States financial system. But of course, all of what is the term that libs always say? No, the immigrants do less crime than people born here. I mean, one, that's just factually not true. And also, I recognize that this is just one instance, but this, of course, this is happening. If you come into the country illegally, facilitated by the drug cartels, why would we think that they would just stop there? The drug cartels are like, hey, we got them into the country. They paid us for it. That's all we're going to do. No, they're going to use the people that are in the country to push drugs. They are drug cartels. They are massive businesses. Of course they would do that. She faces up to 20 years in prison and substantial fines. And she was detained in Colombia, interestingly enough, in 2023, extradited to the United States in 2025. Authorities seized about $2 million in related assets. Great news that we're catching them. Bad news that I guarantee you a lot more of them are here. Up next, the FAA, interestingly enough, you might have heard this story floating around, reopened some El Paso airspace after a special security closure. The Federal Aviation Administration briefly closed a bunch of airspace around El Paso International Airport in Texas for what they initially announced would be a 10-day restriction due to special security reasons, but it was reopened earlier. Paused a bunch of major airlines. They were trying to... Okay, so here's what it actually was, right? The closure was prompted by a neutralized incursion of drones linked to Mexican drug cartels, i.e. the last thing that we were just talking about. With the FAA, Department of Defense, and this is from Newsmax. I'm not entirely sure why they're calling it the Department of Defense. To my understanding, it's the Department of War, but we're quibbling over semantics here. Addressing a threat leading officials, including the Transportation Department, to confirm that no ongoing danger to commercial traffic was under threat. Bottom line here is, well, exactly what it is. The drug cartels are doing what drug cartels do. They put drones into place and they terrorize folks. I'm glad the FAA is taking a look at it. And glad that it's back open, but that is a big problem that we all would like to see fixed. To a CNN, getting to the point, the U.S. economy, and this I know was probably just so terrible for CNN to have to report. I love it when there's news so good from the President of the United States, the person that they hate the most, that they just have to report on it. This is one of those situations. CNN, the U.S. economy added stronger than expected 130,000 jobs last month, January 2026, significantly, according to CNN, surpassing economists' expectations of around 75,000, so almost double, while the unemployment rate seemed to be declining slightly from 4.4 to 4.3. Dang it. I would just love to be tpt@tpusa.com. If you have any thoughts about what it's like in those CNN newsrooms when they're typing this out, going, ugh, the bad orange man did good things again. I really, really hate them. Overall, construction jobs added 33,000. Manufacturing jobs added 5,000. Durable, but private sector effectively is what I think we're looking at here ultimately. Primarily health and social services, but 136,000 jobs added, which trumps the numbers that economists expect. And I do think too there's an important emphasis to be put on the private sector jobs. California, Governor Newsom talks about how California is the fourth largest economy in the world if it were just its own country. Yeah, but a huge percentage of California jobs are government jobs that the government uses debt to pay. So like, sure, yeah, there's more money circulating, but it's all the money from the people that don't have any money because it's the taxpayers' money going into debt to pay people to have jobs that honestly probably are necessary. So that's a good thing to point out too, that it primarily, in a lot of ways, private sector jobs. Another one from Axios. Another one, probably just debt. Axios is a little bit more fair, but they're not like super fair. They're like kind of middle of the road ish. But headline from Axios: how the Save America Act could impact 21 million voters. Oh, you know what? I must have misread this. I thought. I think I switched the verb. That's somewhat fair. Impact is the correct word. The three major changes here, and I know we've been talking about the SAVE Act, so maybe this is a little bit of a homework review for all of you fine folks that already know all of this sort of stuff. Mandates proof of citizenship, which is an ID, which again, unfortunately, black people can't get because they're too stupid, according to Governor Hochul in New York and a bunch of libs everywhere. I don't happen to believe that, but that's just what they say. So unfortunately, those minorities won't be able to vote. It'd also be required when registering to vote, requiring a photo ID in order to cast ballots in federal elections, which the woke states that don't want this still can do their whole state stuff. And it would impose additional measures like in-person citizenship verification for mail-in registration applicants, which of course would help ensure that somebody was a citizen voting. Again, I know the only reason that you don't like this is because minorities are just too darn stupid to get an ID, and well, that's just the cost that we have to pay to keep things. Apparently, minorities just can't vote unless, of course, they are smart enough to get an ID, and all of the aspersions being cast on them by the libs are incredibly racist and demeaning. Last one to round up, getting to the point. Grand jury rebuffs Justice Department attempt to indict 6 Democrats in Congress. Remember that video that was going around of the you don't have to listen to unlawful orders? I mean, technically that's true, but the idea that it's just blatantly unlawful, like, hey, this is 100% unlawful, that's where the sticky situation led to. There's a bunch of senators, including Mark Kelly and Senator Slotkin, that were in this video saying you don't have to listen to illegal orders. And we said at the time, and I'll still say it now, that the problem with that is, well, what's legal and what's illegal? That's kind of the whole point of the justice system, right? The Constitution is what the Constitution is. The executive branch gets to enact the laws that were provided by the legislative branch, in other words, Congress, and how both of those things interact are all up to the justice system. Whether or not it's illegal is kind of unknown. What it seemed like they were implying is, hey, if you don't like this order, you don't have to follow it, which would be treason. In this particular case, a grand jury said, we're not going to charge him for it. And maybe that's the right thing to do. I don't know. For me, and maybe this gets some pushback, tpt@tpusa.com. On elected officials, it seems like, especially in the political climate that we're in now, you got to have some ironclad proof. Let me say it this way. There are way more egregious things that elected officials have been caught doing that I think we should go after. We should go after all of it, but this one, in terms of like the ironclad case being made, you know, would I probably vote in indict? Yeah, probably. But, you know, there are bigger fish to fry is what I'm saying. And, you know, maybe we should focus more attention to Governor Tim Walz. Not to say that this isn't bad. I'm just saying that's at least where my mind goes when it comes to this sort of stuff. TPT@tpusa.com is the email address. Thanks so much for tuning in. This has been
Get to the point. Get to the point.
I feel like I did too. I feel like I got to the point. Quite. I don't know that I rambled too much on that. Oh, maybe I did. TPT@tpusa.com if you have any thoughts on Get to the Point. Coming up next, the other brand new segment, Official Business. This is the official business of the elected representatives of this country, and we will dissect their every word in Official Business coming up next. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away.
From powerhouse vocalist Natasha Owens, known for standout singles like Trump One and Somali Waltz, comes her brand new release, The Boss, released on Real America's Music. This is the direct response to Bruce Springsteen's recent release, The Streets of Minneapolis. While Springsteen once branded himself as a voice of the working class, The Boss gives a voice to everyday Americans and reminds listeners who truly shapes the future. The Real America's Voice audience has the power to move charts and shake the industry. Download it right now. Scan the QR code or search The Boss on iTunes. Push it up the charts. Make them notice.
Hi, my name is Tracy L. from Arizona. I don't stink around in the kitchen when it comes to the news. I watch Real America's Voice, which always serves accurate and reliable updates that are on point with their amazing hosts. So don't find yourself in a pickle by tuning into the fake news. Stick with Real America's Voice.
Now it's the French Yannick Bertrand. Through the S-turn. Yannick Bertrand. Oh, the gate to the groin for Yannick Bertrand, and you could hear it. And if you're a man, you could feel it. Wow, watch this again. Oh, the Frenchman. Oh, monsieur. Wow, the boys took a beating on that one.
I wouldn't be an Olympics, a Winter Olympics, without playing that classic clip. Oh, monsieur. The boy, I laugh, but at the same time, I also recoil in shared felt pain with that guy. We feel bad for him. The one thing that's from a couple of years ago, by the way. That's not from this Olympics. But the one actually very interesting point that comes out of this, something that I didn't know. I did not know that French men had testicles. This is a new revelation to me. I'm glad that this clip exists. Kind of confirmed that for me. I'm still a little iffy on all of them, if 100% of them do. But good to know. You learn something new every day. So that's that. We'll get to some commentary on the Olympics. But right now, it's time to introduce our brand new segment, Official Business. We start off today's official business in congressional hearings. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi was sitting in front of a congressional committee, and there were a lot of fireworks. Now, there's actually some emailers that email the show quite often that are not big fans of one Pam Bondi. We're not going to get into her specifically right now. I really just wanted to play this for the fireworks going off. This is official business being conducted on behalf of the American people, and unfortunately, it devolves into complete and total utter chaos. At least the chair of the committee, Jim Jordan, Congressman Jim Jordan, seems to have a good-natured attitude to what otherwise is a just chaotic train wreck of a congressional hearing. I believe this is cut 8.
About they indicted. The president said they indicted him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock and restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New York. We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when you ask a question, the witness gets to answer. You may not like the answer, but she gets to answer.
The question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like the answer, Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest. So he asked a 4-minute question.
Restore 45 seconds. Mr. Nadler, please, Mr. Chairman. You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I said that already.
45 seconds.
Okay, I'm timing right now, Mr.
I do appreciate the fact that Congressman Jim Jordan is come on, guys. What are we doing? Because that is official business. Now, what I do think is fascinating about this, I'm not sure. TPT at TPUSA.com if you have any thoughts about this. I'm not sure that public hearings do any good anymore. I know that we want to be transparent. We need to see everything. But what it ends up being is just this grandstanding opportunity for guys like Representative Gerald Nadler, who famously pooped himself at a podium with Nancy Pelosi. We don't have the video of that right now. I just wanted to put that in people's memory. Congressman Poopy Pants, sometimes is what I call him. But he says, Pam Bondi says exactly what he does. These guys get 5 minutes, and then they talk for 4 minutes and 45 seconds, and then ask, do you agree? And when I say no, they're going to clip that up. So I want to give a full answer and not just have this be a speech platform for one of the poopiest congressmen in the country. And then she gets into it with Jamie Raskin, who I think later on she said, I hear you're pretty good at stock investing. He didn't say anything back to that. But another official business in that same hearing, I did want to play this. Unfortunately for Representative Nadler, not only does he poop himself in his pants, allegedly, he also falls asleep. So even though there's no real exchange of words that is necessarily taking place here, it is official business when you fall asleep on the taxpayer dime. Cut 9.
Protect the American people and defend the rule of law above all else. While our work is never We have made tremendous. In 2025, we saw the lowest murder rate in 125 years.
Like, of all of the places not to fall asleep. Look, Congress, if they don't want to, don't need to have a very busy day. You got to go to your committee meetings. You got to go to floor votes. I guess you have to do town halls, even though people are doing that less and less and less. Bottom line is, there's plenty of time to sleep. The last thing that you want to do is what Joe Biden famously did several times: fall asleep when the minimal amount of time that cameras are on you. At least didn't poop himself this time. Just at least that's the case. In other official business, the Vice President of the United States was seen outside of his plane taking questions from reporters regarding the Olympics, the America haters that are representing America in the Olympics. Now, again, I would love to solicit emails, tpt@tpusa.com, if you agree with me that, hey, I still want these people to win because they're Americans. Or who was it the other day that emailed saying, you know, I don't want them to lose, but I don't necessarily root for them. My position is, yeah, we should root for Americans. But at the same time, the vice president makes a good point in conducting official business of the United States of America on how we should view people who use their Olympic platform to spout off against the very country that is paying them money to be there.
Olympic athletes were unbelievable, and I know the entire country is rooting for them. Yes, you're going to have some Olympic athletes who pop off about politics. I feel like that happens every Olympics. My advice to them would be to try to bring the country together. And when you're representing the country, you're representing Democrats and Republicans. You're there to play a sport, and you're there to represent your country and hopefully win a medal. You're not there to pop off about politics. So when Olympic athletes enter the political arena, they should expect some pushback. But most Olympic athletes, whatever their politics, are doing a great job, are certainly enjoy the support of the entire country. And I think recognize that the way to bring the country together is not to show up in a foreign country and attack the President of the United States.
Now, that is actually a very unifying message. If only, he had done it in Spanish, then it would be truly unifying. Because that's what Bad Bunny did, right? He unified people by speaking in a language that most of us don't speak. That's what unity is. I mean, to that point, it actually is pretty interesting, some of the commentary back and forth. I did go back and forth with some of my more lib friends on the internet the other day, specifically about Bad Bunny, saying, hey, he's just doing his thing. Look, the second that you enter the political realm, the political commentators in that realm already have every right to give their 2 cents. And I think that's what Vice President J.D. Vance was saying there. It's like, hey, support him. Yeah, you may not agree politically speaking, but the second you jump into the political arena, yeah, you should expect some pushback from the folks who have been here and are consistently talking about politics. You don't want to share your political ideology as an Olympian? So be it. Do it. Fine. That's totally fair. But the second you do, you have to believe that all of the commentators are going to be giving their 2 cents. In wrapping up our official business today, this is not in a congressional hearing. It's not an official press conference by one Jasmine Crockett, Representative Texas. But it is important to note for many reasons, specifically because of some of the things that she said here that I thought were fascinating. And I'll give you some context after we watch this. This is Cut 11.
I've always been someone who has been intellectual. I was top 10% of my class at Texas Southern, my first year in law school. I was always very much kind of digging in and wanted to understand. I was always the person that would bring the receipts and wouldn't back down. So,
You're always clapping back too?
I was always, yeah, there was always a pushback. If I feel like I am right on something, I've always been very clear about that.
Again, that is Representative Jasmine Crockett. And like she says, she's an intellectual. As we all know, anytime she comes up in conversation, you think that is an intellectual. She pushes back. She asks questions. She does all the things intellectuals do. She mentioned she was in the top 10% of her class at Texas Southern. So I did some digging around. Texas Southern's Thurgood Marshall School of Law ranks in the bottom percentage of law schools, according to U.S. News and World Report, Best Law Schools 2025. They don't give a specific ranking, but it's between 178 and 195 out of 195. This places the law school that she's bragging about as in the top 10% of the worst. Places that law school in the bottom tier of accredited U.S. law schools. Often described as the lowest numerical at range before unranked bottom schools overall. Not sure if that's much of a bragging point. Anyways, one, Ms. Crockett, good luck at the intellectualism. It suits you well. Keep asking those questions. That was official business. Appreciate you sticking around. TBT at TPUSA.com. We've got Woke Wednesday, as it is Wednesday, and we will highlight some of the wokes coming up next. We'll be right back after the break.
From powerhouse vocalist Natasha Owens, known for standout singles like Trump One and Somali Waltz, comes her brand new release, The Boss, released on Real America's Music. This is the direct response to Bruce Springsteen's recent release, The Streets of Minneapolis. While Springsteen once branded himself as a voice of the working class, The Boss gives a voice to everyday Americans and reminds listeners who truly shapes the future. The Real America's Voice audience has the power to move charts and shake the industry. Download it right now. Scan the QR code or search The Boss on iTunes. Push it up the charts. Make them notice.
Hi, my name is Tracy L. from Arizona. I don't stink around in the kitchen when it comes to the news. I watch Real America's Voice, which always serves accurate and reliable updates that are on point with their amazing hosts. So don't find yourself in a pickle by tuning into the fake news. Stick with Real America's Voice.
I'm Patriot Mermaid, and I'm from West Haven, Connecticut. When the mainstream media wasn't giving us the truth, I went and looked for the truth and found it on Real America's Voice. Come and join us. Come on.
My name is Phoebe, and I live in Florida. I love Real America's Voice. They truly speak for the people, and that's what real patriotism is all about.
My name is TJ Ash from Carbonville, Utah. Real America's Voice lets me express my conservative views without censorship or edit.
This is for the LGBTQ community.
So there's an internet trend where you cut off the video as soon as you know what's going to happen. Like as soon as you get like the tiniest bit of the word out, you know, and that's where this one cut off. But yeah, this one's for the LGBT community, and that doesn't even roll a gutter ball. That ball is going straight into the other lane. Like that's not even close. Oh man, that's fun. All right, well, hey, we don't have a ton of time, so let's get to it right away. Today is Woke Wednesday. Now, there's some things that I'd like to get to that I don't know that we'll have enough time to, so maybe we'll push it to next Woke Wednesday, or maybe we'll have Thursday's theme be somewhat woke-related, woke-adjacent. But I think the first thing I want to get to here is the shooting that happened in Canada. It was unfortunate, and this is all terrible, terrible news. One of the worst school shootings in Canadian history. I think the worst mass shooting in Canadian history. Apparently, allegedly at this point in time, what we know is it was done by a 15-year-old trans person. A dude wanting to be a woman, unfortunately affirmed in the country that he lives in that affirms this sort of stuff, and horrifically and tragically took the lives at this point in time, it's 10 people. If that number has gone up by the time you're watching this, sorry, but many others injured. Horrible, disgusting situation there. And the only reason we bring that up here on Woke Wednesday is that unfortunately, the Canadian people in charge, the press, nobody wants to address the whole trans violence thing. This is cut 12, the guy in charge being asked, and notice he doesn't say gunman, he says gun person, because that's the problem that needs to get fixed here. This is cut 12.
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to...
That's it. That's very short clip. But there's a spokesperson for the police saying, yes, gun person. And then the person asking the question says, oh, do you know if the gun person... I have been pretty sturdy on this for, as long as I can remember. I refuse to talk about gun violence in this country until we have a discussion about mental health. Throughout the history of humanity, people have had weapons. That's just the way it works. You have to have weapons to defend against people who also have weapons who are bad people, who are trying to infringe on your freedoms, who are trying to do whatever it is that they're trying to do to you or your family or your country. Weapons need to exist. Obviously, something has gone terribly wrong in the mental health of way too many people around the country and around the world that is getting blamed on the weapons that have existed, that have pre-existed all of the mental health problems. So, if you'd like to talk about gun violence in this country or really anywhere, this obviously took place in Canada, you have to be willing to discuss the mental decline of far too many people and how that relates not only to gun violence, but violence overall. Weapons are not a new thing. Guns are not a new thing. I mean, relative to the course of overall humanity, yes, but this stuff wasn't happening 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Jeez. I guess 20 years ago, you got Columbine. Probably even more than that. But it's only recently in human history and the history of this country that this stuff is happening. And I, for one, refuse to have the discussion about anything gun related until we also simultaneously have the discussion of mental health. That was a little bit of a downer Woke Wednesday. It's kind of needed. We have several other videos that we could play, just don't have time to do it. So maybe we'll get to those either next Wednesday or figure out a segment in the show tomorrow to put them in. Because some other fun stuff that we can make fun of the wokes, but not going to happen today. We'll get to our mailbag segment coming up next. TPT@TPUSA.com if you'd like to be included in that mailbag segment. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away.
From powerhouse vocalist Natasha Owens, known for standout singles like Trump One and Somali Waltz, comes her brand new release, The Boss, released on Real America's Music. This is the direct response to Bruce Springsteen's recent release, The Streets of Minneapolis. While Springsteen once branded himself as a voice of the working class, The Boss gives a voice to everyday Americans and reminds listeners who truly shapes the future. The Real America's Voice audience has the power to move charts and shake the industry. Download it right now. Scan the QR code or search The Boss on iTunes. Push it up the charts. Make them notice.
Hi, my name is Tracy L. from Arizona. I don't stink around in the kitchen when it comes to the news. I watch Real America's Voice, which always serves accurate and reliable updates that are on point with their amazing hosts. So don't find yourself in a pickle by tuning into the fake news. Stick with Real America's Voice.
I'm Patriot Mermaid, and I'm from West Haven, Connecticut. When the mainstream media wasn't giving us the truth, I went and looked for the truth and found it on Real America's Voice. Come and join us. Come on.
My name is Phoebe, and I live in Florida. I love Real America's Voice. They truly speak for the people, and that's what real patriotism is all about.
My name is TJ Ash from Carbonville, Utah. Real America's Voice lets me express my conservative views without censorship or edit.
Today.
Yeah, haters will say that's fake. That's obviously President Trump balling out, crossing up LeBron James, as President Trump, one, is in fact 6'7", 6'8", same height as LeBron. They're the same size. And two, just masterful in his skill over, an aging former NBA superstar. Yeah, there will be some people that will say that that's AI, that's edited, that's not true, that's just a made up video. No, I can tell. I was there. Now, obviously I'm kidding, and the only reason that I'm saying that I'm kidding is because there are libs that'll do that sort of stuff. I was there. I saw. Like, no, you weren't, you lying sack of crap. I don't know. That's not where I was tending to go. Bottom line is, yeah, President Trump balls out when he can, but it's tough. He's running the world. Doesn't make it to the court all that often. Anyways, in the brief time we have left, let's get to our mailbag. Arturo says this: in my opinion, I think all the libs and the illegals in the sanctuary state, sanctuary city areas should be forced to live there. Agreed. I've been saying this whole, Arturo, great minds think alike. I've been saying ship all. I mean, some places have done it. Governor Abbott famously was shipping a bunch of illegals, criminal illegals. Actually, yeah, no. So shipping illegals to these sanctuary areas. Yeah, put them all there. I know you can't do this constitutionally, but if you were able to create a border around the entire state of Minnesota and, hey, made your bed, you got to sleep in it. We're cutting off federal funding. You don't have to send us money. We won't send you any money. See how it goes. I guarantee that experiment wouldn't go well. But thanks for the note, Arturo. A. Potter said this on the topic of misbehaved rabbit. Why doesn't anyone translate Bad Bunny's lyrics from Spanish to English and let all the non-Spanish speaking people know what disgusting things he was really saying? That's true. That's been done a number of times. We haven't really talked about it here, but I think mostly Monday in that 30-minute screed of why I think that was a bad idea overall. Just didn't have time to get to it there, but that's a great point. I would say that the FCC should go after NBC, because just because you're saying something in a different language means that you're entirely able to do so within the FCC guidelines. If I say a bad word, the FCC will fine us. So you don't get a break because you're saying it in a different language. You're not off the hook because you're saying it in Spanish. So very good point. Beverly, on the topic of blaming the firefighters that we talked about yesterday, that the LA City Council or the fire chief, the mayor specifically, shifted focus in the report away from the leadership and to the firefighters. I said that's disgusting and horrible. Beverly brought up a good point. What if they're just all DEI firefighters and that those statements were actually accurate? I don't know that I understand the point, Beverly. That's a great point. On that same topic, let's see. I don't have time to read the entire emails, but Nicole and Teresa said the same things. Yet, unfortunately, cynically, none of those people are going to face any consequences for changing that report. Whoever did it, right? Because it was not the mayor. So there's that. TBT@TPUSA.com is the email address. Really appreciate you sticking around, tuning into the show. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow. God bless America.